Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be doing some LGBTQIA book recommendations. I have a whole bunch, so I'm just going to quickly get into it. I'm doing short summaries and then telling you guys what the representation is in these books. I hope you guys enjoy, and I hope that I can give you some recommendations that you haven't heard about. So, the first one on my list is The Black Coast by Mike Brooks. This is a fantasy trilogy, and the blurb on the back says, "When they spot raiders on the horizon, the Knights of Black Keep saddle their war dragons, preparing to defend their people. But this time the raiders have not come to pillage. Driven from their own land by a demonic despot prophesizing the end of the world, this raiding fleet comes in search of a new home. Meanwhile, the wider continent of Narita is lurching toward war. The settlement at Black Keep is about to be caught in the crossfire if only its new mismatched society can survive." So the raiding country that is coming over to this Black Keep is actually a queer normative country. And so you really see how that affects them getting along with the Black Keep, which is not a queer normative country. So highly recommend this trilogy, fantasy. The next I have to talk about is a novella series. It's ongoing, The Fireborn Blade by Charlotte Vaughn. And this says, "Kill the dragon, find the blade, reclaim her honor. It's that or end up like the countless knights before her as a puddle of gore and molten armor." This follows a female knight who is going on a quest, and she is a lesbian, and that's all I'm going to say. Next, I have the ever popular Legends and Lattes. This is, I guess, technically a duology because there is a prequel that follows Viv the Orc. This is by Travis Baltrey, and it says, "After a lifetime of bounties and bloodshed, Viv is hanging up her sword for the last time. The battle-weary orc aims to start fresh, opening the first ever coffee shop in the city of Thune. But rivals old and new stand in the way of success, not to mention the fact that no one has the faintest idea what coffee actually is." So this follows Viv. She is a lesbian, and she has a kind of slow burn romance with the succubus she hires to work in her shop. Next, I have I think it's an ongoing series, and the second book is either just come out or is coming out soon. That is The Witch King by Martha Wells. And this says, "After being murdered, his consciousness dormant and unaware of the passing of time while confined in an elaborate water trap, Kai wakes to find a lesser mage attempting to harness Kai's magic to his own advantage. That was never going to go well. But why was Kai imprisoned in the first place? What has changed in the world since his assassination? And why does the Rising World Coalition appear to be growing in influence? Kai will need to pull his allies close and draw on all of his pain magic if he is to answer even the least of these questions. He is not going to like the answers." So this is a fantasy story with a queer normative world. Next, I have The Ones We Burn by Rebecca Mix. "Branka is tired of death. All she craves now is to rest, remain in Witchick's wild north with the coven that raised her, and hide from the horrors of her past. But when Ranka is named Bloodwyn and the next treaty bride to the human prince, her coven sends her south with a single directive: kill him. Except the prince is gentle and kind and terrified of her. He doesn't want to marry Ranka. He doesn't want to be king at all. And it is his sister, the wickedly smart, infuriatingly beautiful Princess Aramis, who seems to be the real threat. In this story, Ranka is forced to question everything she thought she knew about her power, her past, and who she is meant to fight for. Soon she will have to choose between the coven that raised her or the princess who sees beyond the monster they shaped Ranka to be." So, fantasy story following a lesbian warrior. And this is a standalone. Next, I have another fantasy trilogy, The Final Strife by Sarah L. Arifi. And this says, "The Aktabar, a set of trials held every 10 years to find the next emperor rulers of the empire, is about to begin. Scylla was destined to win the trials. Stolen by blue-blooded rebels as an infant, she was raised with the Duster's heart, forged as a weapon to bring down the empire from within. That bright future has turned into dust. But Scylla wasn't made to sparkle. She was born to burn. And as the trials draw near, it's time for her to decide, will she rule the empire or destroy it?" This follows a bisexual main character and is a complete trilogy. Next, I have The Helm of Midnight by Marina Lostetter, and this is a completed trilogy that I just can't shut up about. In a daring and deadly heist, thieves have made away with an artifact of terrible power, the death mask of Louis Charbonne. Made by a master craftsman, it is imbued with the spirit of a monster from history, a serial murderer who terrorized the city. Now Charbonne is loose once more, killing from beyond the grave. But these murders are different from before, not simply random, but the work of a deliberate mind, probing for answers to a sinister question. Krona and her fellow regulators must enter the mind of madness to stop the insatiable killer while facing the terrible truths left in its wake. This is a horror fantasy series in a queer normative world, and it is so good. Please, please read it. And last for my fantasy recommendations, this is currently a duology, Mortal Follies by Alexis Hall. A young noblewoman must pair up with an alleged witch to ward off a curse in this irresistible sapphic romance. So, sapphic fantasy, kind of historical fiction, and it definitely gives me Shakespearean vibes, kind of Midsummer Night's Dream. So, I know this doesn't get very good ratings, but I loved it. Next, we're getting into my sci-fi recommendations. I have the novella series. Just kidding, I have one more fantasy series that I forgot about. The novella series, The Wayward Children by Shannon McGuire. This is a portal series following multiple teenage characters and has a lot of LGBTQIA rep throughout the series. Next, we're going into my sci-fi recommendations, and first I have the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. In a corporate-dominated spacefaring future, planetary missions must be approved and supplied by the company. Exploratory teams are accompanied by company-supplied security robots for their safety. But in a society where the contracts are awarded to the lowest bidder, safety isn't a primary concern. On a distant planet, a team of scientists are conducting their surface test, shadowed by their company-supplied bot, a self-aware sec unit that has hacked its own government module and refers to itself as Murderbot. Scornful of humans, all it really wants is to be left alone long enough to figure out who it is. So this series is queer normative, and the main character is genderless. Next, I have A Memory Called Empire. This is a duology by Arkady Martine, and this follows Ambassador Mahit, who travels to the capital of the Interstellar Empire, eager to take up her new post. She arrives only to discover her predecessor has died, and no one will admit that his death wasn't accidental, or that Mahit might be next. Now she must discover who is behind the murder, rescue herself, and save her small but fiercely independent mining station from the Empire's unceasing expansion, all while navigating an alien culture that is all too seductive, engaging in intrigues of her own, and hiding a deadly technological secret. This is in a queer normative world, and the main character is either bisexual or a lesbian. I don't remember which. Next, I have The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson. This is another duology, and in this story, multiverse travel is finally possible, but there's one catch. No one can visit a world where their counterpart is still alive. Enter Kara, whose parallel selves happen to be exceptionally good at dying, from disease, turf wars, or vendettas they couldn't outrun. Kara's life has been cut short on 372 worlds in total. On this dystopian Earth, however, Kara has survived. Identified as an outlier and therefore a perfect candidate for multiverse travel, Kara is plucked from the dirt of the wastelands. Now what has once made her a marginalized has finally become an unexpected source of power. But trouble finds Kara when one of her 8 remaining doppelgangers dies under mysterious circumstances, plunging her into a new world with an old secret. What she discovers will connect her past and her future in ways she could never imagine. And in this series, you are following a lesbian main character. Next, I have This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El Motar. And I do recommend their newer fantasy book as well, A River Has Roots. In the ashes of a dying world, Red finds a letter marked Burn Before Reading. So begins an unlikely correspondence between 2 rival agents in a war that stretches through the vast reaches of time and space. Now what began as a battlefield boast grows into a dangerous game, one both red and blue are determined to win, because winning's what you do in a war, isn't it? This follows 2 lesbian main characters who are rivals in this time war and fall in love anyways. Next, I have The Long Way to a Small and Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. Becky Chambers has a lot of great queer normative or LGBTQIA in her books. I have another one of her books as a recommendation in just a second. This follows a space crew of different species and personalities, and the main character is a bisexual human, and there again is a lot of great LGBTQIA rep in this. The next recommendation I have from Becky Chambers, I only have the second book in her duology. I still need to pick up the first one, but it is the Psalm of the Wild-Built and Prayer for the Crown Shy. This is a story that follows a monk and a robot in a futuristic dystopian world, and the main character uses they/them pronouns. Next, I have Chain Gang All-Stars by Nana Kwame Adjei here. And this is set in a dystopian America, and the blurb says, Loretta Thurwar and Hamara Stacker are the stars of the Chain Gang All-Stars, the cornerstone of CAPE, or Criminal Action Penal Entertainment, a highly popular, highly controversial, profit-raising program in America's increasingly dominant private prison industry. It's the return of the gladiators, and prisoners are competing for the ultimate prize, their freedom. This follows gay, lesbian, and queer characters, and the story is just really good. Then I have Upright Women Wanted. This is a dystopian future set in Southwest America, and I guess this is considered a Western. I didn't realize that until recently, but this follows Esther. Esther is a stowaway. She's hidden herself away in the librarian's book wagon in an attempt to escape the marriage her father has arranged for her, a marriage to the man who was previously engaged to her best friend who she was in love with, her best friend who was just executed for possession of resistance propaganda. The future of the American Southwest is full of bandits, fascists, and queer librarian spies on horseback trying to do the right thing. They'll bring the fight to you. So this follows a group of lesbians that are these bandits and spies, and it's a really fun read. Next, I have Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby. This follows a black father, a white father, two dead sons, and a quest for revenge and redemption. The fathers in this, their sons were married to each other, and as they're going on this quest for revenge, they have to confront their own prejudices that they had, not only against the gay community, but also their prejudices against each other. Then I have Watch Over Me by Nina LaCour. This is a YA horror and follows a girl named Mila. Newly graduated from high school, Mila is aged out of the foster care system. So when she's offered a job and a place to stay at a farm on an island part of the Northern California coast, she immediately accepts. She hopes she'll finally find a new home, a real home. The farm is a refuge, but also haunted by the wounds of its young residents that have come there to escape. And Mila's own terrible memories are starting to rise to the surface. So this follows a lesbian main character, and I can't remember if there are other queer characters in the story. And lastly, I have A Lady for a Duke by Alexis Hall. This is a historical romance following a transgender woman and her childhood best friend that she is keeping her identity a secret from. This is a beautiful and heartbreaking story. I love the trans rep and the gay rep in this book, and I highly recommend it. So that is it for my recommendations for LGBTQIA books. I am so excited for Pride Month. Let me know down in the comments below if you have read any of these, if you want to read any of these, or if you have any recommendations for me. My favorite thing about YouTube is talking to you in my comments and in your comments, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye.